Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be introducing you to another all-road titanium build that I'm having a whole lot of fun with. This is the Bahl Elemento. Bahl is a manufacturer of primarily metal frames out in California, and I had an opportunity to connect with Brandon Poser, the owner of the company, while I was out there for the Sea Otter Cycling Festival. You know, one of my objectives when I went out there was to connect with the manufacturers, well, as many manufacturers of metal frames as possible, and see what I could do about building relationships, getting some products on the channel for review, and to be able to educate myself a little bit more about what's out there, but also to be able to expose my audience about some of the different manufacturers that kind of fly under the radar, but definitely have quality products. So in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through the build a little bit, and then I took the bike out on my first group ride with it, which was a little bit of baptism by fire. I did a very fast group ride with it on Saturday, and I'm going to run a little bit of voiceover, a little bit of commentary, and talk about the sensations that I got, the feedback, and how I felt the bike was performing. But just walking through the bike, the build, this is a Selle Italia SLR boost saddle with manganese rails. We have an FSA 27.2 seat post. Then the rest of the cockpit is also FSA. We have an FSA aluminum stem that has the ability to do kind of like the semi-integration of the tubes. They come down into this little cubby before disappearing into the frame. The handlebar is really neat. It has a little bit of a hover effect. What I really like about the handlebar is that it has a very shallow drop. That looks to me to be about maybe 117, maybe 122. The componentry on the bike is a SRAM Force, the previous generation. That cassette looks to me to be maybe about a 1036. I know the chain ring is a 4633. We're running 170 millimeter cranks. The bike performed really, really well. The bike has some really neat elements in terms of the shaping of the tubes, some really standout features. I'm gonna start with the top tube. The top tube has kind of like a little bit of a camtail design. I know it's weird, but that's how it is, where it's kind of flat on the top, a little bit rounded on the bottom. It flares out a little bit horizontally as we approach this really beautifully shaped head tube, and then it kind of like tapers as we approach the seat tube. Really nice. And then one of the standout features for me on this bike are the seat stays, where it kind of like it goes diagonal, and right before it connects with the dropouts, it kind of like juts down vertically. Really, really nice junction. I really like the way how that came out. The chain stays have a very prominent S-bend. It's a really nice frame. And then when we come into the junction here for the bottom bracket, it's an inboard T47, not an outboard T47. The down tube is rounded until we get down here to the junction of the bottom bracket where it flares out a little bit. We have an NV fork. Really nicely done. But what I want to do is I want to get into the ride footage, talk about the sensations that I felt from the bike, what it was like to take it out there in that type of environment, because this is not like a fast group ride crit machine type of thing. It has a very interesting geometry, very interesting features in terms of chain stay length and wheelbase, but it got the job done on this ride. And by the way, this frame has a capacity to take 40 millimeter tires on there. So on a future ride, I'll get it out there and do some gravel, maybe a little bit of gnarly stuff, a little bit. Yeah, we're gonna flex with it and have as much fun as possible. All right, let's jump into the ride footage. Let's go.
All right.
The video picks up with me just having made the junction to the group, as they have just pulled out of the parking lot at Weston Town Center. The ride is a Palomos Saturday fast ride. One group at a pace of 23 to 25-ish, with a distance options of 40, 50, and 60 miles. It's one of those rides where you can kind of jump off when you feel like you've had enough. The ride starts at 6 a.m. sharp. It's run year-round, and many use it as a way to get some extra miles before maybe linking up with another group, be it bigger, smaller, faster, or slower, and then resuming the rest of their Saturday program. I like it because it loops north, then it goes south past my home, where when it goes back north, I can be done with the ride by 8 a.m. when they swing around and start heading back into Weston. Getting to the ride from home is about 7 miles for me, so leaving home a bit after 5:30, it wasn't exactly a chill warm-up. All right, let's jump into ride characteristics, beginning with ease of fit. This being the first official ride other than just punting it around my driveway, I felt a bit rotated backwards overall, and I think that is because of the saddle position and the extra spacers. But it was rideable and I felt fluid on the bike. My initial impressions were that the bike felt sprightly and a bit playful. I didn't feel like I was riding a bike with 420 centimeters chainstay length. It feels stiff, smooth, responds to normal touch, a very good intuitive bike to ride definitely. Structure felt solid and it felt like it was very, very well made. I should mention that the night before, I swapped out the wheel set to my Magine DB508 Ultra, which are rolling on 32C Pirelli P0, and I'm actually running those tubeless. Needless to say, push-off was good. It was very easy to get the bike rolling. Now, once I was up to speed on the way to the ride, I felt like I was cruising along nicely. When I caught on to the group and they switched on, I went from doing 17 to 19 miles an hour to immediately doing 23-ish. That transition was normal, just a couple clicks of the gears, and I was in business. Sitting in the pace line and modulating my speed, by adjusting the pressure that I'm applying to the pedals, was a breeze. The bike is a very good dance companion that way. It behaves well. Bottom bracket stiffness is there. Head tube and spine structure is also there. The Elemento responds well coming off of lights and turns. If I ever felt labored on this ride, believe me, it had nothing to do with the bike. So this is actually my first time doing this ride, meaning the Palomos ride. I know some of the players haven't been on other rides with some, but this is kind of like typical South Florida group ride. Double pace line, some surginess, not an actual chain gang because the ride is paced by the designated pacers. But if you're in a pace line close to the front, some people rotate off and don't jump back in front of you and your number comes up. You can get your nose in the wind for a bit if that's your thing. So as I wrap up this initial evaluation, I'm not really going to talk about climbing response. I'll get something in on that when I review it for its all-road capabilities. The ride is now approaching its southern point, which means I am close to home. And man, this was a tough ride, and it was really because of the conditions. The issue on the day was the heat. Even getting an early start, it's like the minute the sun comes up, it just really begins draining my energy. So as we swung back through Silver Lakes, I was happy. Really looking forward to being able to get off the bike and getting into the cool air. So how would I classify this Bahl Elemento? Well, let me get off the bike and I'll tell you.
I'm going to classify the Bahl Elemento as a very capable road bike, partly because that's all that I've done with it so far. And secondly, and perhaps most importantly, is because it actually is. There was nothing that I required of the bike to do that the bike fell short of. In fact, the handling, the responsiveness to me being able to apply power, and even modulating the pressure that I was putting on the pedals to be able to control what was going on with me in the pace line, the bike responded like I expected it to. So much so that I was able to switch my brain off and act like I was riding on a bike that I'm accustomed to in that type of environment, meaning a road bike like my Basso Diamante. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the geometry of this, but before I do that, I want to say that I think that manufacturers of metal frames have a golden opportunity right now to do things that I think that carbon frame manufacturers either can't do or don't want to do. Let's say you are a weekend warrior, you own a Tarmac SL8, and you're thinking about bringing in an N+1 to complement your stable. So you're thinking about maybe an endurance-oriented frame that maybe has an opportunity to take some wider tires. So you go with another carbon frame. Well, I think you can do that, but I think that cuts you off from other things that I think would render a very good riding experience, like riding one of these types of bikes. So titanium, steel, and in maybe to a lesser extent, aluminum can render a little bit of a different riding experience than carbon does. They're also durable in a different type of way than carbon is. So let me talk about the geometry of this bike. The geometry is very road-esque towards the front and very kind of like party in the back towards the back. The head tube length is 140. Comparing that to the Basso Diamante, which is 136. Head tube length here is 72. On the Basso Diamante is 71.9. Seat tube length here is 73.6, I believe. And on the Basso Diamante is 74. Then when I come to the front to center, which is perhaps a more significant measurement for that type of stuff, on both bikes, it's 596. I thought that was very interesting, which explained why I was very comfortable switching my brain off in drafting. But then when I come to the rear of the bike, the chainstay length here is 420. On the Diamante, it's 400. But I didn't feel any differences in terms of application of power for acceleration. That was very interesting to me. And the wheelbase here is 1,006. On the Diamante, it's 987. So when I went back and I looked at those numbers in comparison to how the bike felt, I was a little bit surprised about what was going on in the rear of the bike, not so much the front, but I was expecting like maybe a little bit more sluggishness in terms of responsiveness, and I did not get that from this bike. So that was very interesting for me. So I'm going to put some knobbies on here. Well, actually, I can't put knobbies on here, at least not the ones that I have. I'll put some 40mm slicks on here and do some gravel and report back about how I think the bike performs. I try to fit my Pirelli P0H, the gravel-oriented tires. I could get them on in the front, but I was not able to get them on in the back. But I can get the slicks on there, the Pirelli P0 TLR. So I'll put those on there and I'll report back to you guys. Yeah, so yeah, that's it for me with this. I believe that's where I'm going to leave it. You guys know how it works around here. It's your turn. Let your voices be heard in the comment section below. I'm curious to know what you think about what I mentioned, complementing your weekend warrior bike with maybe something made out of metal. Curious to hear the comments on that one. Thank you guys for continuing to support our channel by watching our videos, liking, commenting, and subscribing. As always, our aim here is to inform, instruct, inspire. Be blessed.